Hello and welcome to a Talmud Israeli production. Today we'll review the highlights of this week's course of Daf Yomi study, Masechet Bava Batra, pages 5 through 11. Daf Hey 5. Amarish Lakish. Hakovea zman lachaveiro. If you fix a time for your fellow to pay you back a loan which you gave him. V'yamalo paraticha betoch zmani. And the borrower says, I already paid you back within the time frame of the loan, meaning before I needed to. Eino neman. Well, we're not going to believe this guy, because people don't typically pay back loans prematurely. If only people would pay at the right time. We're not expecting people to pay too soon. We're hoping that they pay at the official date. So Abai and Rava both said, Avid inish the par begos money. Zimnin Dimitramale Zuze, Amar Ezel Apar Kechelo Tardan. So Abai and Rava both said, actually, no. People occasionally do pay back a loan before it comes due. And why does that happen? In what circumstances that happen? When they have unexpectedly an infusion of cash. The borrower suddenly has an infusion of cash and now has the wherewithal to repay the loan. And he thinks to himself, you know what, let me take care of it now. This way they don't bother me on the expiration date. Okay. Daf Vav 6. Amar Shmuel. Gaga samach lachatzer chavero osalomaka gavoa dalramas. If you have a roof, a usable roof, which is adjacent to a courtyard of your fellow, you have to make a fence or a wall partition 4 amot high. Now, 4 amot is maybe 6 to 8 feet, is higher than the height of an average person, and this will obscure the view from the roof of the neighboring courtyard. Now, why is this necessary? Because of hezek re'iyah. We don't want people snooping on other people's activities. We want to have a measure of privacy. Aval ben gag legaglo. But if the two adjacent parcels are not a roof and a courtyard, but rather a roof and a fellow roof, then a fence of 4 amot high is not necessary, because people can predict when someone is coming, and there's no need to hastily conceal your activities. You'll have your privacy. There's no worry about invasions of privacy in that circumstance. But nonetheless, you still have to have a barrier of 10 tefachim high to delineate whose property is which property, even if it's not going to block anybody's view. Zayin. Hey, 7. There was a loan document that was in favor of the orphans, meaning orphans were able to collect from this document. But there was also a receipt that indicated that the loan was paid. Well, we're not going to collect on these documents, and we're also not going to tear up these documents. We're not going to collect because, after all, there's a receipt which indicates that payment was already made. We're not going to tear up the loan document because maybe when the orphans get older, when they become of age to handle their own finances, they'll be able to undermine the receipt, the other document, and indicate that it's false, forgery or false, and that the loan remains uncollected and could still be collected. 8. Nafchet. Vehem tu kula raglecha, yisami dabarotecha. This is a pasuk in Vizot HaBracha, the last parsha of the Torah. What is tukul raglecha? Tamrei Chachamim shemechatetin ragleim me'ir le'ir b'din no Torah. It refers to the Torah scholars who stomp on their feet on the roads and the highways and byways, from town to town, from province to province, looking to study Torah. Meaning, the yeshiva boys of old would travel from one city to another, from one region to another, looking for the best Rebbe. This was true even in Eastern Europe, in Poland and Lithuania and Ukraine and Belarus. They would go from one yeshiva to another, from one shtetl to another, looking for the best Rebbe to study Torah. Machatetin raglehem. They would stomp their feet on the roads to get to the Rebbe. Yisami dabarotecha, lisavlitem deretav shemakom, in order to engage in the discourse of the Torah of God. Daftet 9. So we have to give charity, in terms of food charity, to the poor. And if someone is not a local impoverished person, but rather is passing by from town to town, he's over makom lakom, from one place to another, we don't give him less than a loaf of bread, a kikar, provided that the price of the grain and flour is a certain price. Now, uparnasat lina, we also give him Harnasat Lina, the amount of money needed for sleeping overnight. What is that? Kura, Ubesadya, a mattress, and a pillow. So we give him a bed to sleep on and a pillow for his head. Shavas, if he's going to stay over the Sabbath, then Mazun Shalashudas, we have to give him enough food for 3 meals. That ordinarily a daily supply of food is 2 meals, but on the Sabbath it is a third meal, the Sudash Lishit, so the charity dispensers have to give for that as well. Daf Yud 10. Zu She'ela Shal Turnus Rufus Harashat Rabbi Akiva. Tinius Rufus, who was one of the evil Roman officials in the days of the Hadrianic persecution and was involved in the days of the 10 martyrs, asked Rabbi Akiva, who himself was one of the 10 martyrs eventually, the following question. If your God, meaning the God of the Jews, loves poor people and cares about poor people, why does he not give them their sustenance? Why does God allow poverty to continue? So Rabbi Akiva's response was, in order that we, the givers of the tzedakah, should be saved from the ravages of Gehinom of hell. So basically, poverty exists in this world so that people might be charitable and impress the Almighty with the charity that they give, and thereby be spared from suffering in the hereafter. Yud Aleph 11. Tanarabban. Masechet Munbaz Hamelech. There was an incident involving Munbaz, who was a king in a faraway province, who was a convert to Judaism. He squandered, or rather, he spent the money that was in his otsar, his royal storage house, and that of his ancestors. So the accumulated wealth of generations in the royal family, the royal treasury, was being depleted for charitable purposes. Bishnei Batzoret, in a time of famine. So his relatives, his brothers, his male cousins, who had the potential to inherit some of this royal treasury, and now it's gone. They said, they said to him in a critical tone, your ancestors, the generations that came before you, they accumulated wealth and preserved the wealth that was of generations past. But you, as for you, you deplete all the wealth, and it's going to disappear. So by contrast, you're doing terribly. You're doing terribly as a royal. So his response was, I put things in the storage house above, meaning in the Shamayim, in the heavens. I'm getting mitzvahs. My ancestors just put it in the storage houses below on earth. And what's more important, the Geniza upstairs. So Bunbaz is saying, yes, I know your criticism, and I reject it because the giving of tzedakah is more important than the hoarding of cash in the Olam Hazeh. Everyone have a great week.